Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Claddercast, episode 97. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm Sid. I'm Sid Gill.
Should we do that again?
Yeah, you'll need to do that again. I lost the plot.
Well, there was two things there. You lost the plot, and Andy was busy taking a giant swig from his gin and tonic.
I was lubricating the vocal cords there, Steve. It's necessary.
Full on professional outfit. That's what I was told I was joining.
And you have. That's why we're doing it again.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Claddercast, episode 97. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
And I'm Sid Gill.
How you doing, lads?
All the better for a G&T, mate.
Yeah.
Hang on, it's only Tuesday and you're already on the G&T.
I am indeed, yes. It's been a week and a half so far.
And the sun's out. We've been released to have friends
true.
in our garden. You know.
And I have
are...
friends in my garden.
There you go. And you've abandoned them to record a podcast.
That's called dedication and professionalism. Listen, dear viewers, you are more important to me than the gobshites downstairs drinking alcohol on my deck. I have to say, this has been a tough call. I'm not going to lie.
Are we expecting hecklers midway through?
No. They've been given instructions to shut up. This is an important and professional outfit, and I do not wish to be disturbed.
Does that mean you're going to talk like Lester in this podcast, try and hurry it up so you can go outside and have a drink with them?
I hadn't considered that, but now you've mentioned it, I'll just silence my feed and leave.
Well, one of the interesting things for us during lockdown is watching Andy spend all his money on random stuff.
It's quite a passion, really.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
There's no randomness about it, you cheeky bastards.
There is. Yeah, who knows what delight you're going to show us you've purchased this. I mean, we're all the same, to be fair. We're that excited now. Yeah? We're just desperate for any kind of acknowledgement or conversation. We all go, look what I've bought. But Andy seems to be even more random. It could be a power tool. It could be several crates full of beer.
These are not random. These are definitely, men things.
Well,
these are much needed, very, very much things.
Or it could be an airbrush for painting miniatures.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That was definitely an inspired purchase. You should totally get one.
I think the speed of the buying process was the highlight for me.
That's true, yes. In the morning, I'm considering getting an airbrush. In the afternoon, it's on its way.
Was it even as long as that? I recall it as being about 25 minutes.
It might well have been.
It went from, I'm thinking about buying this. I've seen this. Oh, I've bought it. That was pretty much the transaction as I recall.
There's no point in messing about.
That's true. It's true.
And to be fair, I do not regret the process or the purchase. It's proved to be exceptionally good value.
So I looked into this over Christmas, and I'd set myself a budget of £100, mainly because that was like a Christmas bonus from work. And I said to myself, so what if I can get an airbrush for £100? Maybe that's what I need to give me a kick up the arse to get back into painting. And the answer is most definitely no.
No, a kind of mid-range entry-level airbrush is about £150. Just the airbrush.
Just the airbrush.
Just the airbrush. Like the one I've got with part of this kit, because I bought a kind of a starter set, well, I say starter set, kind of complete kit from a kind of a dedicated airbrush site. I can't remember the name of it now, and they do loads of different ones. They obviously do really high-end professional ones that will cost you literally like £600 or £700 just for the airbrush, all the way down to kind of, introduction basic sets and stuff that include the airbrush, the tubes, and the compressor as well, which is what I got. So, reasonable set. I did a little bit of research online to find out, reasonable brands, reasonable entry-level stuff, and went onto this site and they had basically all of those, and I found, right, okay, that one looks good, because some of the advice I had was you probably want to start off with a couple of different nozzle sizes, because you use a bigger nozzle for sort of mass undercoating, because it doesn't need to be exact, and then you have a tiny little sort of nozzle for slightly more precision stuff. Made sense, fine. And I found one set that was a reasonable budget, and it came with two nozzle sizes, 0.4 for they say beginners, but mass undercoating, and then a 0.2 mil for slightly more precision stuff. And I think all in the kit was about £230, and that included the airbrush, the compressor, and the tube, the air tube that you get with it. And do you know what? That's bloody good value.
Didn't include cleaning kit.
No.
Did you get any like respirators and that as well after the fact?
No.
Okay.
Oh, you don't need one. Don't be ridiculous. It's only acrylic and air. You're not going to need a respirator. You're not squirting terps everywhere. Don't be daft. It's not as if you're in a body shop spraying cars all day. No. You don't need that. And of course, it's very directional, so you can see where it's going. You don't need a respirator. As I say, it's water-based stuff, so you'll be fine. It doesn't smell. Although to be fair, the cleaner does smell pretty bloody good.
I was about to say, if as someone working in the health and safety professional, please investigate, listeners, looking into getting a respirator or some kind of filter mask.
I've made a personal risk assessment and judged that I don't need one, or rather don't want one and can't be asked. But yes, if you feel it is required, then please buy one. But honestly, it's not that bad. It's literally very
And don't do
easy.
what my friend did and squirt cleaning fluid in his eye.
I have to say, it's a really, 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 really thing to do because it's made colour blending and transitions so easy. From instead of painting on layer on layer on layer on layer of slightly varying colour and still getting slight lines between each layer, it's literally just squirt, 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 and all of a sudden you've got this perfect transition from dark to light. You're thinking, this is brilliant. Admittedly, I've only done it on big stuff so far, so doing it on small stuff is a lot harder because you need to vary the airflow, and there's so many different variables, and you can watch 1,000,001 videos. This is how you do airbrushing, and then you'll watch a different one and someone else will give you some more advice, and it's like anything. You could there's rabbit holes and pitfalls and perils, and I think it's just one of those things that you just kind of need to jump into and learn on the job.
So have you watched any of that Angel Geraldes yet?
I follow him on Instagram, and he is just stupidly talented. In fact, I commented on one of his posts the other day and he gave me 2 hearts. So I feel touched.
Because for those who don't know, he's the official painter for Infinity Miniatures. And you look at these paintings and you think, oh, they look amazing. Then you look at Infinity Miniatures and they're like about 2/3 the size of a Games Workshop miniature. And it's like, how the hell did he do that? And he's there with the spray paint going, I'll just, spray on the reflections in the eyes of me with the air gun. There we go.
Yeah, I've seen him do one of his, if it's the same person, I think it is, that I'm thinking of, because either that or I'm following a completely different chap called Angel. And he has been doing a rabbit from some kind of story-based game. And the miniature itself is quite smooth, but he painted on the fur. Like basically the brush strokes he made it look like fur. You're like, Jesus Christ, dude, this is ridiculous. It's Angel Geraldes, that's him. Yes, it is.
Absolutely terrible. I mean, it's amazing to watch. It's one of those videos I can just watch him paint stuff because it's just fascinating. But it's like, how?
Doing like Space Marine heads just on their own. And like you got the size of the head, which is 5 mil, 6 mil high, and he's got like this massive, great brush that you see right next to the head, just drawing on a beard. You're like, how do you do that? Yeah, he is ludicrously talented. But he posted up his very first miniature that he painted the other day, which is what I got 2 loves for, because I commented that it's actually quite inspirational to see that everyone starts somewhere, and it's always nice to look back on where you were and where you are now, to go, do you know what, even though I am feeling crappy about where I am right now, this is where I used to be a year ago, and I am definitely better than I was, which is quite nice. And he gave me 2 loves for that. But yeah, his first miniature was fucking awful. But of course, now you look at it and you go, yeah, probably the best painter in the world right now. But yes, I do have an airbrush, and I don't regret it. It's absolutely stunning. It's it's wonderful. To the point now I just want to airbrush everything. And I can't. I mean, do some research to understand exactly what you're getting yourself into, because it isn't a cheap thing to invest. I mean, I joke. Well, I say joke. The actual kit I bought was literally £230. Was the airbrush, the tube, and the compressor. And the airbrush is more expensive than the compressor, hilariously. But it's all the extra stuff as well, like cleaner, as you've said, Steve, like primers, cleaning tools. You go through so many cotton buds, it is unbelievable. I have just bought 800 cotton buds, pointy ones from Amazon. Not expensive, but there's like this enormous bag full of things. I've used about 50 of them already just to clean the thing at the end of it. It's ridiculous. The amount of cleaning of the airbrush you do is significant. But so all of that additional cost adds up. And of course, the one I bought doesn't come with cups for the gravity cup. So you put paint in the top.
What?
Yeah. It doesn't come with lids. Sorry, not cups.
Oh, lids.
It doesn't come with lids. So which is fine for most of the time when you're not getting too vigorous about undercoating. But when you turn the thing upside down because you're trying to get into a crevice and you suddenly realise all the paint you poured in is all over the desk. You kind of need a lid, so I bought some lids, and they're like £7 each or something ridiculous because they're precise engineering things. Yeah, there's a little cleaning tools and little sort of tiny little bottle washer things that you put up all the nooks and crannies of the thing. It does add up, and I think genuinely, realistically, I've probably spent about £400 for everything that I've bought for it. The bulk of it obviously was the hardware, but I did go a little nuts on all of the primer bottles I bought. Probably a little over the top because I thought, well, I've got about 500 miniatures. I'm probably going to need a lot more black primer. I've used probably about this much out of an inch out of a sort of 4-inch bottle of primer so far, and I've got about 500 miniatures to do. I don't think I'm going to need all 4 bottles, but But I've got black and grey and white. Oh god! So there's like 60 quid I probably didn't need to spend, but you never know. It's not as if it's going to go off.
You have to post some of your finished miniatures onto the Pledge and Collider Twitter feed and Facebook page.
Oh, don't do that. You'll embarrass me.
Well, I think we should because you're. I was rather impressed by with your statues from Tainted Grail.
Oh, the menus. Yeah, they come out quite well. I have to admit the object source lighting for the candles was an absolute doddle with an airbrush. It was literally fill it with yellow paint, squirt, 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 gradually harder squirts to build up the yellow, and that was it. It was really, really easy. But they were quite simple, and I will admit that I did actually follow somebody else's kind of version online, but who cares? It looks really good. I modified it, and I improved it. I think mine looked better. But
You're not a modest man, are you, mate?
Genuinely, I think they do look slightly better. But, it was their idea, so all I've done is crib them. So ultimately, they're the ones with the talent, not me. But if you wish to post them, I shall not object, although please only post the reasonable ones, because some of the stuff I've painted recently has been dog shit. I tried to do quick and dirty.
Power.
Yeah, you put the deep ones on. They look bloody awful. I tried to do like quick and dirty versions, like just see if I can actually do speed painting. Turns out I can't.
I tried that at a convention once. I tried a little speed painting. It was almost like a little mini competition, and it was sponsored by the makers of War Machine, Privateer Press. So you got 3 miniatures, basically your thing for taking part, and you were given like half an hour to paint this miniature. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now it takes me about that long to paint the bloody trousers most of the time.
And it was you had to pick this up and think, right, I'm going to have to do things without other colours drying. So I have to think about how I do this. So basically, I had to wet blend the entire thing because there was no other way of doing it. And I screwed it up because I thought at one point, I'll just make myself a quick wash and just do it was actually the trousers, the wash. And it's like, holding on to this miniature thinking, time is just ticking away now while I hold this soaking wet miniature. Everyone else is there, carefully wet blending all his features. Ah, bugger, I've screwed this up.
Yeah, that is why I have a hairdryer. It dries shit really quickly.
Yeah, they didn't have one of that in the competition.
Honestly, even the base coat for me, it takes me ages. I am not a quick painter at all. Like genuinely, even without the airbrush, my average time to paint a single miniature at the moment is probably about 4 to 6 hours for like one standard miniature.
That sounds about right for half decent quality.
I took your advice and bought a few Games Workshop miniatures a couple of weeks ago, and they turned up last week, and I put one of them together as a 40k miniature called Inquisitor Greyfax because she looked quite nifty, and she's like a steampunk Inquisitor, I guess. It's weird. She's got like a tube coming out of her hat. Honestly, it's like a big metal hat with a pipe and it's got like steam and stuff coming out of her head, and she's got a crossbow. Seriously, like big metal steampunky type things. I don't know what Games Workshop are thinking for this, but it's definitely a 40k miniature. And it's really, really cool to paint, but I have spent hours and hours and hours on it, and I've still not finished the base coat.
It'll be interesting to see how long it's going to take to finish the entire thing then.
Jesus, yes, it's ridiculous. I mean, the detail on the miniatures are lovely. They really are. I mean, they're not cheap, but they are lovely and well detailed, and everything is really crisp and precise, which is nice because a lot of board game miniatures are a little smeared, shall we say.
Splodgy.
Yes, although the Tainted Grail ones aren't terrible. But yeah, it's difficult. So yeah, buying these, as you suggested, just as a kind of treat, just to see, what good is, it was a good idea. I've got a box of wizards I'm going to build next. They'll be fun. Just because they look like fun miniatures to paint, because you can have a bit of fun with wizards and magic because you can make all kinds of funky colours. And it should allow me to practice things like blending magic and clouds and, one colour into another to make things look bright and nice and stuff, which I'm really lousy at. So it'll be fun.
Cool. I thought I would quickly mention, not kind of a full review, but a kind of a brief review of some books I've been reading.
You can read.
Now, I can write as well. I'll write my own name.
Can't spell.
No, that's different, yeah. So we mentioned quite a while ago that Asmodee have basically got their own book publishing division now called Aconyte Books. And what they're doing is they're doing books, novels based on board games. So they started with Arkham Horror, but it's mainly at this point the Fantasy Flight kind of games,
right.
Basically the theme-heavy games. So Arkham Horror, Descent,
Power Grid, Barrage.
God, that'd be a dull story.
Jesus.
So what they've done is we've managed to get access to a few of them via Kindle, so electronic versions. I know I mentioned them ages ago, but I'm not quite sure if I kind of did a full review of them. But I've read 3 of them now, so I thought I'd give like a brief overview of them. I've got to say from the start, they're not amazing. They're no Brandon Sanderson, They're
I was about to say, the look on your face is about to say, they're a bit shit.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go that far, but I would say, look, they are that kind of licensed fiction. You get your Games Workshop make a big deal of it. The Horus Heresy series is a massive series of books, which the quality of them goes up and down all over the place. And when they're good, they're amazing, but a lot of them are below average. So I've read 3 of them, which are the 2 Arkham Horror ones and the 1 Keyforge one. I'll talk about the Keyforge one first, because it's an anthology, so it's loads of short stories. So Keyforge is that game which was the one where you buy a deck and it's already randomised for you, so you don't know what the deck is until you get it. And to be fair, the Crucible setting is their excuse to throw lots of random stuff together. So you've got aliens, you've got elves, you've got dinosaurs, you've got weird Cthulhu-esque monsters from another dimension. And the setting, which, to be fair, they've even released a setting book for their RPG for this setting. So the idea is they're all in this one city and they're all fighting over these Keyforges. And so it's loads of random stories about things that are happening in this city. Some of them are quite generic fantasy, and some of them run away with this crazy idea of the Crucible and just go bonkers with it. The generic fantasy stories are actually pretty boring in it. And the book works really well when it just goes absolutely bonkers crazy. Like there's one part when 2 girls do an exchange visit to a Martian base.
Wait, what?
I can't really describe any more than that because it is so weird that you're just reading it going, I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know where it can go, but I'm intrigued.
But I am on the bus.
I'm on that bus, yes.
The doors are shut, and I'm riding it to the terminus.
Park yourself on the back seat. Enjoy the ride.
So the other 2 ones I've read are the 2 Arkham Horror ones. The first is called Wrath of Enkai. And it's kind of a 1920s kind of pulp story. The main character in it is this Italian jewel thief, and she's trying to steal this ancient artifact, but it gets stolen by a bunch of gangsters. It's really proper 1920s in its styling, with the ancient artifacts being, of course, Cthulhu mythos related and Gribblies and creatures from another dimension are after her. I would class it as alright. It goes a little bit, it sticks to the kind of more 1920s vibe than the horror vibe. There's not actually not much horror in it, to be fair. And it's got a little bit of a mystery. And at the end, there's a ritual because, it's Arkham Horror, isn't it? It has to be a ritual.
Suddenly, cultists.
Yes, exactly. The last ritual starts off better. It follows an artist who has some really quite abstract experiences near the beginning of the book, and it feels quite Lovecraftian at the beginning because it's kind of dreamlike, and Lovecraft always wrote about artists being the people who would be in contact with Cthulhu in the outer dimensions. And I started reading this book and I thought, oh yeah, no, this is it. This is a really good book. And then about halfway through, it just kind of went. It just kind of lost momentum, and it's like, I don't know what's driving this forward now. I'm just reading it to find out what's going to happen. And yeah, there's a ritual at the end of it. There's a portal.
Is it a sky beam as well?
No.
Oh no, they've not gone full Marvel then.
No, they don't want full Marvel. It's weird actually as well because they're based on the Arkham Horror, but they're not using the Arkham Horror characters.
Oh, boo!
I thought they would use there's like 30 player characters like from the Arkham Horror games.
Beast with all of the
Between like Arkham Horror, the board games, and Arkham Horror, yeah. And they don't seem to be. I thought they would be using them as main characters, but they're not. And it's really bizarre in that regard.
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean, especially if they're using licensed product, because it means if they're using licensed product, there can't be any IP issues. So
yeah.
That is an odd decision. So are they better or worse, the Lovecraft ones at least, are they better or worse than the original source material? Because let's be honest, Lovecraft stuff wasn't exactly well written.
That's an interesting one. I would say some are better, but nowhere near as good as Lovecraft's best.
Right, sure. And yeah, by that, I assume you mean like Mountains of Madness and Call of Cthulhu.
Call of Cthulhu, yeah.
Dunwich and all that jazz. I'm still yet to get there, actually, because I've got his complete works, which is, this massive tome, and I'm getting through them. I quite enjoyed Dagon, which is actually one of his earliest ones. Yeah, I'm getting through all of the flowery end of the world. Don't sit in a boat forever because you'll just end up somewhere mad, or people getting stuck in deep holes and discovering slimy walls and then going mental kind of era that he goes through before he gets to Cthulhu and all that sort of jazz, because he's yet to really sort of cover all of that. There's hints to it at the moment, but not he hasn't got to the big stuff yet.
I'm still not convinced he intended it all to mesh together. I reckon he just threw in references to his other work just to kind of go, there you go.
It'll do.
There's something to intrigue you.
I don't know. I think he probably had an idea in his head about some kind of weird-ass universe with a few of these creatures running around in it, but that's about maybe as far as it got. So yeah, you use a bunch of names, name drop them now and again to make it sound like some kind of coherent babble. But that's ultimately what it turned out, is weird shit with a few recognisable names. And then he comes up with a couple of gems that, threw pasta at the wall until it stuck. And there's about 3 of his novels that actually stuck, which everyone's jumped on. I did like Dagon, though, actually. That's a good book. It's based bloke in a boat, turns up in an oily sea for reasons, and then ends up on a random island and goes absolutely batshit mental. And then some kind of, a deep one basically appears at his window right at the end. It's quite good. I enjoyed that. I thought somebody should make a short film out of it, because I think that would be pretty good. I think there's actually a full-length version of Dagon from a few years ago, and it looks bloody awful.
It's not. I've seen it.
Oh, God.
It's not Dagon. It's called Dagon, but it's actually Escape from Innsmouth.
Oh. Interesting.
Well, it's like Escape from Innsmouth with just this random insert of Dagon at one random point. Nice. And it's set in modern times, and it's set in like a Spanish fishing village. It's got a bunch of American tourists getting trapped in basically Innsmouth, but it's not Innsmouth, it's some Spanish village, because
Innsmouth.
It might be Italian, because I think the director is Italian or Spanish. I can't remember which now for the life of me. It's not good, but as Lovecraftian films go, it's not the worst by a long stretch.
Have you seen, actually, Colour Out of Space with Nick Cage?
Oh, peak Nick Cage.
That's only a couple of years ago. It's not that old.
No, I think it was
last
early
year,
2020.
maybe?
Yeah, I think it was last year.
Do you know what? It's pretty bloody good.
It's not bad, is it?
It's really, I mean, it's definitely Lovecraft. You can tell it's Lovecraft. And there's some nice little references in it. And yes, everyone goes batshit crazy. It's really good. I quite enjoyed it.
The other one I haven't seen, which again was last year, is Underwater.
Ah, yes.
I've heard some good reviews of that.
Yes, that had Savino? No, not Mara Savino.
Kristen,
that's her. Yeah, from Twiglet.
From Twiglet, yeah,
That's it.
the one who has the acting range of a spoon.
That's it. A plank of wood could probably out-emote her.
Yes, that's her.
Yes.
Kristen Stewart.
That's her, yeah. So, yeah, it's supposed to be all right. I've heard good things, or at least not bad things about it. Speaking of Lovecraft, we're on the train now, aren't we? I got an advert. Let's listen. It's not a notification. It was an advert about a new point-and-click adventure game on Steam called Chronicles of Innsmouth, Mountains of Madness. So it's like mixing of two massive novels there. Head them on as a great train smash, based in two completely separate parts of the world. But never mind. We'll just run with it.
Just stick a colon in between. It'll be fine.
Exactly. It'll be right. And I've started playing it, and it's all right. You can definitely tell it's an independent developer, but my initial criticism of it being ramrod linear has now fallen away a bit, because it's a bit more kind of, there's a few places you can go now once I've started playing it for a little while. But it does seem that a lot of the puzzles are still quite limited to the area in which you find the bits, rather than where in a Monkey Island where you'd find something on one island, you have to travel through 6 different islands to actually find a use for it on a different island. So it's not quite as expansive as that yet. And you can definitely tell it's an independent, because the voice acting is really, really good.
Did you ever play the official Call of Cthulhu game?
Video game?
Yeah.
No. I played the one that was out a few years ago that was based around Innsmouth. What was that? That was Call of Cthulhu.
Oh, God. Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth.
No, the one after that.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah. That's what I was talking about. It's just called Call of Cthulhu.
Yes, that one. Sorry, I thought you meant the one from years and years and years ago.
No, Dark Corners of the Earth was one from years and years ago.
No, the one that was about, 2 or 3 years ago that came out.
Yeah.
Yes, I played that and finished it, and it was...
Ramrod linear.
Yes, even though it spouted, you could make decisions during the game that'll affect it. No, it won't. You'll make decisions that appear to affect the game, but have absolutely no influence on it whatsoever. Like, you could make a decision, and it makes a massive point in the game about this decision will change the course of your game forever. Will it? Really, really? Yes, and by that it means it changes the ending a bit. So, will you drop your trousers to the lady friend in the mansion, and that'll mean that you get to brandish the random banana in the final what's the ritual? Or will you choose to give her some fish and chips, and that means you can bring out the pen of destiny? They're completely unrelated. But yes, it was ramrod linear, and the forced silly stealth section in the middle of the game that could not have been telegraphing its intent harder, because when you go through the game, you kind of use cupboards that you can investigate and pull things out of, except that when you go into a room, and I'm trying not to spoil it too much, but it will become obvious if you ever play this, what I'm talking about. You go into a room and all of a sudden you can hide in the cupboards. What's going to happen here?
Although that one section you're on about did scare the crap out of me. I think that's the most stressed I've been playing a video game in a long time. Even the rest of the game I thought was, mediocre at best. That bit, my heart was going up 10 to the dozen. It was like, no!
I was to start with, because I really like stealth games, and I do try, sneaky bollocks run around games are my favourite type, because I do like to try and stay out of sight and hide and do it properly. But I just got annoyed because it was, one death kill. I was like, I just, for fuck's sake, just piss off.
The 20th death, it was just like, oh, for crying out loud, come on.
Yeah, because I didn't do something at the right, instant, or the pixel got it wrong, and you could see one hair on my pimply arse when I was hiding behind a bookshelf, shit like that. I thought, I'm bored now, go away. Because it just wasn't in the spirit of the game. There was no warning for it, and there was no real payoff for actually achieving it. I thought, bollocks to it. And then after that, I think, was it after or before that? There's like some kind of blackout that you have, and all of a sudden you get back to a mansion. And there's like 5 people there that you'd met previously who are now pretending to be in your gang. You're like, what? Have I missed something? There's like half the game I've just been asleep for.
I thought exactly. I thought I'd missed a level. Oh, what the hell are these lot doing here? And the mysterious room that you were like intrigued about earlier. I thought, well, am I supposed to go and look at that now? And you couldn't because the door was locked.
Yes.
I was like, huh? What?
Yes, it was, I think, bad pacing, I think, is probably about as generous as I can be with that game. Some of the feel, to be fair, some of the feel of it did feel like a Lovecraftian game in places. But it was very inconsistent in tone. And then there was the kind of mafia boss lady near the start of the game in the village you start in. There was a big thing made of her, and you're like, oh, she's an important character. As soon as you get off the island, drops off the face of the earth, never hear from her again.
Yep. Yeah, bizarre, wasn't it? Anyway, we've been talking a load of nonsense for far too long, and so far this has been a celebration of mediocrity. So, let's move into some
Lovecraftian
news.
mediocrity.
Yes. So, we don't actually have much news to talk about this week, which is good because we've got a lot of questions to talk about earlier.
That's all right then.
We've got a lot of questions for later. Have any of you seen Astartes on YouTube?
No.
Right.
As in
When this
Legionnaires
podcast
Legionnaires Astartes.
Adeptus Astartes.
That's the chap. Yes, that one.
It was a fan-made 40k video. And he made it all himself, apparently all one man, which that itself is impressive. Then his YouTube account got hacked, so he almost lost control of all of it. And it's like 5 episodes, and each one's like a minute, maybe 3 minutes tops. And you need to watch it because it's absolutely awesome. All it basically is a bunch of Space Marines attacking these like cultists of some description. Well, it's that good. Games Workshop have basically hired him.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Well done, sir.
So he's going to be making an official... The sequel, because it does end on a cliffhanger, the sequel is going to be an official GW licensed animation, whereas previous it was kind of a, I'm doing this, but I don't own the rights to any of these characters at all.
Fan fiction, I think that's called, isn't it?
It is, but the weird thing is, Games Workshop, about 10 years ago, used to come down on this stuff like an absolute hammer. Like a force hammer. Thunder hammer, even.
Oh.
You could have landed that. Steve, and you.
Yeah, I missed that one, didn't I? And there's apparently a couple of fan films that were made like late in the 2000s, which have completely been removed from the internet because of like cease and desist orders. So it's bizarre that Games Workshop allowed this to continue as long as it did, and then they turned around and said, "Well, welcome aboard. You know, what do you need?" kind of thing, which is even more impressive.
Well, I wonder if that's to do with the change of management. Is it the change of management at Games Workshop the last couple of years?
It probably falls into that time. I think it's longer than a couple of years ago now, but yes, I think it falls into that timing. Yeah.
Sorry, I think it's a maturity as well on the parts of the publishers. They start to realise that actually some of this stuff doesn't hurt their brand, and it can actually push their brand forward by not clamping down too hard. If you pick the right influencer, because that's
exactly
what they are.
Yeah, I was going to say something along the same lines. Basically, you know, if somebody is fan making this stuff, then it means that your stuff is probably good because people are making stuff about it, and therefore, if you clamp down, you're just going to garner hatred. If you actually go, actually, some of this is all right, then people will jump onto the train.
It's a delicate balance, I think. You've got to weed out the stuff that's hurting your brand versus the one that's buffing your brand.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
In other news, at this very moment on Bundle of Holding is Coriolis and Tales from the Flood. And I mention this because we've just finished the first module of Coriolis. We've just finished the last voyage of the Ghazali. I kind of get the impression you guys are quite liking it, maybe a little bit.
I can take it or leave it, mate, to be honest.
We didn't get excited about Thursday nights at all. No, not me and Sid. No, we weren't talking about it for the previous 4 days. Right, what are we going to do with our characters
that
now?
Wasn't us at all. Not like we're trying to squeeze in a second session or anything a week now. You know, it's not us. That is not us, Steve. That is not us at all.
Average at best, that's all we can say.
Yeah, you know, it's a bit like watching the news. You've got good bits and bad bits, to be honest. Yeah.
The good bits were when
Be
we
honest,
played it, and the bad bits
I
when we
quite
weren't
fancy
playing
going
it.
back to a bit of 5e. If I'm honest, you know, I'm not down with this.
Do
This
you?
new
Right, okay,
thing.
yeah. Well, you'll be excited for our next two news articles then, but we'll get to that.
No, Coriolis is absolutely stunning. Really, really brilliant.
Absolutely belting. If you haven't got it, go to bundle holding and get it. It's peanuts.
Yeah, and it gives you everything basically that's available in PDF.
That's incredible.
It's the rule book. It's the first book of the campaign. It doesn't include the second book of the campaign, but that's only just come out, and includes all the standalone like mini little adventures as well. They're on PDF
Cool.
as well.
See, I want to get all the books. Now I've strengthened my shelf. After I discovered that there is such a thing as too many RPGs, it's when your shelf gives out under the weight of them all. I was sat painting Inquisitor Greyfax, of all things. Yeah, was it yesterday? No, Sunday it must have been. No, maybe it was Monday. Anyway, a couple of days ago.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Not today, anyway. And all of a sudden, I heard this thump. What the hell? And just this shelf was on the floor. Fortunately, it was the bottom shelf, so they only fell about 30 centimetres, and about, well, several really high-end RPGs were just scattered about the floor. So, God, what's happened here? I just carried on painting because I was doing some wet blending. I was like, I can't let it dry. And they're not going anywhere.
They say it didn't take you by surprise, and now like because the Greyfax got this red streak across.
No, it wasn't at all. It was just kind of this thump, and I was like, oh, carry on.
Anyway, we will talk about Coriolis in more detail later on. I think in a future episode we'll go into some more detail. I think when we've played it a bit more, but I think so far it's suffice to say we think it's really good. It's a really intriguing setting. It's a really good rule set. I mean, it's similar to rule sets of other games we've played, but it does seem to mesh quite nicely. And so it'd be interesting to see how it goes after we've kicked off the campaign proper and gone into a bit of development.
I think it's really struck a chord. I think the setting is the really fascinating part of the whole thing.
I agree.
It's just really struck a chord with all of us, I
Mm.
think. And I want to see how that grows and develops as we play more.
So we've got two kind of semi-related bits of news. Following on from Coriolis, Free League have announced that they're going to be doing Ruins of Symbaroum, which is going to be a D&D 5th edition version of Symbaroum. And this is coming to Kickstarter, I think, sometime in April. It's going to include a DM's book, a player's handbook, and a bestiary. I'm going to basically have everything you need to play Symbaroum setting under the D&D rules. It's going to be interesting what they change, because Symbaroum is quite dark and maybe not as overly fantastical as D&D can be. You know, it's not that massively high magic setting, but who knows where it's going to go. The other piece of news is that the developers of World of Warcraft and Warcraft, basically the heads of Blizzard, quit Blizzard recently and said they're going to start up a tabletop gaming company. And their first product is going to be Auroboros Coils of the Serpent, which is going to be their campaign setting for, again, D&D 5th edition. And it's apparently going to include some slight tweaking to the rules in that it's going to give your players more powers early on. And also the rumour is one of your players is going to end up being like superhuman right from the start.
Ooh.
It's different.
Which is intriguing. I got to admit, I'm disappointed. Because when I heard that the, ex-studio developers at Blizzard were making an RPG and other tabletop games, I was intrigued. And then as soon as I found out it's going to be for D&D 5th edition, I've kind of gone a bit...
It's hard to get excited about 5e at the moment.
Yeah, you two are down on D&D, aren't you?
I'm not... Yes. Let's put cards on the table. I'm going to try...
Don't try and deny it. You were one of the biggest detractors.
I am. I've lost interest with it. And it's not the be-all and end-all of everything. And, why is everyone getting on that bus? That's what I want to know.
Money.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it is. It's well known.
Oh, interesting on Symbaroum. They've tested the waters with this. you can get a freebie off Drive-Thru RPG. It came out about 2 or 3 months ago, called what's it called? Promised Land.
Yes.
And it was like I reckon that this was their test as to whether they were actually going to kickstart it or not. And I kept meaning to read it, but it's kind of a proof of concept little thing. I think it might still be free on there if anybody wants to go and look at it. But it was on Drive-Thru RPG.
What I find interesting with this though is they're not abandoning traditional Symbaroum because they've quite literally just announced more expansion content for the main game.
Which is the bit that blows my mind, is that they've got an absolutely fantastic system that works for them. It's unique and it plays really well. Why the 5e thing? Other than maybe to suck people in? Is it like a Class C drug to get you on the bees? Is that what they're going for? A bit of a introduction to it. I don't know.
Because everyone's heard of Dungeons and Dragons. That's the thing. So let's be honest. Wizards of the Coast is not a small company. There's a lot of clout behind them because are they
Hasbro. Sorry,
Hasbro. There you go.
Hasbro.
We'll get there eventually. So there's a lot of financial clout there. So if you can get the backing of a company that size, then
it's not so much the backing though. It's they've licensed the one of the things about D&D and why there's so many expansions for it, and it's the same that happened with the 3rd edition. Is they license out the D&D rule set. That's how all these people are making all this stuff because Wizards of the Coast went, right, if you want to use the 5th edition, here you go. Here's how much you need to pay us to do it.
There you go then.
So Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro are not supporting these 5th edition expansions. They're not having any input in these at all, but they're taking a cut each time.
About to say, yes. There's obviously, you get the coverage in the sense that it's like the Netflix effect. You get lots of people covering it because there's millions of people who like your stuff, and you get a cut and off it goes.
Just for listeners' benefit here, Andy has decided to put a whole ice cube in his mouth and suck and crunch on it while discussing things.
I shall try that again.
He's not having a stroke. It's fine.
Much to everyone's disappointment. But it is. It's obviously a money spinner for them. So why the hell not? And it's approachable and I say approachable. It's well known by a lot of gamers and non-gamers alike. Everyone has heard of Dungeons and Dragons. If you said, "Oh, I'm making a new RPG and it's based on, I don't know, Tales from the Loop," for example, we've heard of it, but I'll be very surprised if many others had. Who are not that particular game or that particular, all the stuff. People go, "Oh, we could take or leave that." Whereas you say Dungeons and Dragons to most people, rather than you two cynics, they'll go, "Oh, that may be worth looking at. Let's go and get it because it's accessible because people already know the rules."
Yeah, but that's the bit I don't get. That's the bit I really struggle with. That the rules, so what? That doesn't make the game any more accessible. Half the fun is trying a new system. Oh, for me anyway.
He says, having played 4 RPGs based on the Mutant Year Zero by Free League.
Yeah, but that's because it's amazing. That's nothing to do with the system, right? That is the quality.
It does make it easier to learn.
It makes it easier to learn, but that's not. But do you know what? Am I going to go and play Symbaroum because I've already played 5e, or am I going to go and play it because I'm intrigued by the setting and that kind of stuff? Does it really make it that much more accessible?
It probably does, because again, if you like 5e, as I say, if you're not you two cynics, then if you like 5e, it's probably something else that you might want to look at. If not, then yeah, you're probably right. If you don't give 2 hoots about 5e, then yes, it probably isn't going to interest you at all. I don't know. I think it's probably a double-edged sword, as you probably suggest. You either love it or you don't. I don't mind 5e. I know it has flaws, but I think an RPG is what the players and the DM make of it. Because, to be honest, Forbidden Lands, as much as we love it, is quite stodgy at times. And that's nothing to do with 5e.
No, that's our incompetence.
You speak for yourself. You're the player. You're the one slowing it down.
I do speak for myself. I am struggling with Forbidden Lands.
Yeah, it's be interesting. We will revisit Forbidden Lands again in the future. But I'm turning a corner on that a little bit as well. Because I'm seeing, as you said, the stodginess. There is a stodginess there, which isn't in some of the other Free League games.
I think that has challenged us as players and as GMs.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be challenged again when Twilight 2000 comes out. Because I think that's going to be an interesting one in a similar kind of vein. It's a survival
Yeah.
element. That's what we're struggling with. We haven't got our heads around it. And as you say, maybe not for today, but some point in the future, that will deserve its own little segment.
One of the things I was kind of disappointed on, this new company from the ex-Blizzard heads, which for the life of me I can't remember what the damn name of the company is. I was kind of hoping with them being such a big thing that they would have the clout to bring up their own RPG system and therefore, propel other RPG systems to the world, so not everything is just D&D 5e. But I think that's where most of my disappointment kind of comes from. Warchief Gaming, that's the name of the company. The other one, I've been trying to think of an example of this in any other industry, though, where you've got such a skeleton of a system that gets adopted by basically everyone else in the same industry.
Game engines.
Apple's built their entire
Unreal
business
Engine.
on it. And games, yeah.
But it's just the same. Yeah, Apple, the same shit in a different box. Yeah, I know.
The platforms, there's so much.
But I think it's more integrated than that. You say Unreal Engine, that's the engine, yeah, but it feels almost like you're a D&D 5th edition. You're making just Unreal and just changing the graphics and the story.
That's pretty much what the Unreal Engine does. You can always tell it's an Unreal Engine game because of the same clunkiness exists in certain places.
Well, the same texture popping delay.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter if it's on the Unreal Engine 1 or 4 and then there's also because Rocksteady made all the Batman games with one of the later Unreal Engines, didn't they? And you can always tell because they're all the bloody same as all the previous ones. I don't just mean because they're all Batman games. I just mean all the other Unreal games because they have the same heftiness and clunkiness to them. I mean, I say clunkiness. They feel weighty.
But they still change. I take what Steve's saying. They still change the rules. The game itself changes. Yes, it might be functionally the same and have the same bugs and stuff, but it's still a different fundamental game. Either story, either rules, either what you're doing, how you're behaving, all that is changed. Here, all that's changed is the campaign, the setting.
I'm looking at it from a mechanical point of view, though. The mechanics are exactly the same because when you build a game engine,
yeah,
the mechanics are the same.
They aren't, though, are they? You play like Batman. It's not the same as playing like Final Fantasy VII.
I mean, from a programming point of view, the mechanics are exactly the same because the engine is exactly the same.
Yeah, but I'm saying you don't get a video game where like you get, I don't know, let's use the direct example, Baldur's Gate, and all of a sudden 90% of the industry is just making Baldur's Gate licensed versions with a different story.
World of Warcraft. Every Memorpaga is based on Warcraft.
Yeah, but they're not using.
No, they're not.
World of Warcraft
everyone's trying
as
to be Warcraft.
True, and how many of them have succeeded?
Exactly, because let's be honest, as shit as World of Warcraft might be for us, it's probably about as good as Memorpaga is going to be. Everyone's trying to make new Memorpagas, but they're all going to pale in comparison to the daddy.
Anyway, we've discussed this. We've discussed this before. We will no doubt end up discussing it again. Warchief is the name of the company, and that is coming to Kickstarter very soon as well. So keep an eye out for that. So we're going to go straight into the mailbag today.
Russell.
Not because we haven't been playing any games for a month. No, sirree.
You speak for yourself, slackers. I've been playing games.
I am.
Yeah.
The only thing I've played the last 4 weeks is RPGs. And although I can talk about RPGs ad infinitum, as most people listening to this podcast know, I realise that we've actually been playing the same RPG, so we can't keep talking about the same thing.
Much as we'd love to because they were ace.
Yeah, that is true.
So, the mailbag. You know, it is one thing, as an aside, before we dive into this veritable banquet of questions, it is quite comforting to see when you ask for questions, we actually get some. That proves to me that what we're doing might have some modicum of worth and we're not just wasting our Tuesday nights.
Or Steve has a lot of aliases on all the social media platforms.
True, yes. All that, yes.
The Dave, formerly known as Spiky, so not Spiky Dave at all, what blinged collector's edition re-release of a classic game would you like to see?
Does this mean beyond the ones I already have?
Yeah, what are you missing? What's the blinged re-release you want to see? The one game you play that you want to see like a super duper uber deluxe version of.
I'm assuming he means board game rather than video game.
Unless we've changed genre somewhere.
Even a video game turned into a board game, which seems to be very popular these days.
I've got to admit, during lockdown, I have wondered whether to pivot this podcast to a video game podcast. It could be easier to talk about stuff, but
It is. Classic game. I mean,
do you know what? I'm going to say the one that's probably my favourite game, and we all know it, is actually the second edition Arkham Horror.
oh, yeah, but they did that, Steve, because they made third edition.
No. Because it's a different game. Third edition is a different game. Second edition.
True.
It is a very different game. Thematically similar, very similar mechanics, but definitely not the same game. And I'd like to see someone kind of iron out some of the issues. And I was hoping that Arkham Horror Third Edition would do this actually, and basically iron out that game and make it more streamlined. But make it so that you get the Mythos cards.
Yep.
So anyone's played an Arkham Horror game, at the end of every round you pick up the bad news card. The shit's about to go down, and you have to go through it in stages and as to what it do. Things like monsters move, monsters spawn, terror happens, portals open, an event happens. The original Arkham Horror, that card does not run top to bottom. If you plot out the order of things you need to do it's like bottom left, top right, middle, top, bottom, top. It's like a simple thing like that. To be fair, just remake Arkham Horror with just redesigning the Mythos cards and that'll be enough.
Collector's edition Arkham Horror, eh? Interesting. See, I wouldn't mind seeing something like a sort of a redone Advanced Space Crusade, because I loved that game. That was ace. I don't know if you ever played it.
I played it not that long ago, actually.
Really?
I played it about 4 years ago now, I think.
Because they kind of remade it as Tyrannid Attack in the 90s, I think it was. But it wasn't as good. Because Advanced Space Crusade was basically a bunch of little sort of Space Marine scouts getting the shit kicked out of them by a bunch of full-on Tyrannid warriors. There was absolutely no way, unless you put a shitload of Terminators into that and maybe a Dreadnought, they weren't getting anywhere close to winning. But it was an interesting game. And it took me ages to understand that it was kind of a scenario-based campaign game. But it took me ages to actually appreciate that fact. But then I sort of went back to it after I'd realised that, and I had a load more 40k stuff and kind of put little sort of groups of people together and went, oh, that's how it works, and then did it, and I really loved it from then. So having that would be pretty cool. But I vowed the other day when my random 40k miniature turned up just for painting, Laura was completely concerned that I was about to fall down a 40k rabbit hole.
God, don't do that.
Like, no, I have no interest in buying any 40k, don't worry. He says, eyeing up Dreadnoughts to paint online.
Just don't go on Forge World.
No!
Oh, make your eyes water, that will.
Yes, I'm not going anywhere near that.
No.
Other classic games. I don't know, name classic games other than, Arkham Horror. I mean, at what point does it become classic?
Well, that's what makes it hard for me, is the classic part. I would definitely buy some collector's edition of some more recent stuff, but I wouldn't call them classic. And I'm talking RPGs here, not board games, but it's the classic part of Spiky Dave's, not Spiky Dave's question, is the hard part.
I mean, actually, I quite liked Escape from Atlantis, because I know there's like Survive or Escape from Atlantis, but it's a slightly different game, because I had like the original one in the 80s, 90s, that was like the sort of little spinner thing you had, and you had to basically get to the islands at the side. I think it's basically the same game, but a simpler version of it. That was fun. I had a lot of them for that. And then Scotland Yard, which I actually have, Ravensburger still make, because that's a really good game. It's basically a sort of much lighter version of Fury of Dracula. Fury of Dracula takes 3 to 4 hours. Scotland Yard takes 45 minutes. It's much lighter, but it's basically the same game. Because that would be kind of fun. I would say Pandemic as well, but that does have a slightly blinged version because it comes in like a proper medical tin and stuff.
Well, yeah, and as you create the expansions for that, it kind of self-blings anyway, because you start getting Petri dishes in the expansions for putting the cubes in and things like that, don't you?
Yeah. So I don't know.
But Battlestar Galactica.
No.
A version of Battlestar Galactica that incorporates all the good bits from the expansions in, jettisons out the airlock all the bad things from the expansions, the ones that no one ever plays, and then just puts it all in one beautiful box.
That is a good shout.
I mean, technically, that's another game where if you buy all the expansions, you've got the kind of beautified, deluxeified version because you change the cardboard. What the Cylon ship's called? That like a big cross.
Oh, the not Death Star,
ships.
base stars.
Base star, yeah. So if you buy the expansions, you change all the cardboard base stars for plastic base stars anyway, and you change the little clanker token into a little model clanker.
That's true.
Things like that.
Yes.
But yeah, if someone could just get that and put it all in one box, that'd be.
That's a good shout, actually.
It's not going to happen because I think the license is different.
And then they're making is it the Arkham Horror version of it now?
That's the rumor, yeah. Well, there's also, on an unrelated note, there's supposed to be a remake of the actual TV program of Battlestar Galactica coming, isn't there?
Another remake?
Yeah.
Dear God.
I fail to see the point. Ludi Creations. How many? I see where they've done here. How many polyhedrons would a collider collide if a polyhedron collider could collide polyhedrons? I'm not doing it 3 times as they've asked us to do because I've had 3 gin and tonics and there's no way that's going to end well.
I'm trying to work out what a naughty word in there might be, other than the C bomb, which I probably can't say because Steve will probably have a special hooter.
He does.
Special hooter for that one. We have got previous for that. We call them country music.
Country music.
Yes, we do. Country music stars.
Nice. Yes, that's quite a nice way of putting it.
Well, this surely depends on whether it's a ring collider or a linear collider, because the capability of a ring collider is much higher energy than a linear collider. Plus, you get because you can smash things together at opposite directions, you get a much higher angular momentum, and therefore can end up with a much greater.
The meat bun doesn't work, Sid. He's off.
A much greater relative velocity, so you get a higher energy, so you can probe the even further depths of the universe.
He's 3 gin and tonics down. We've got no hope. Just move along quickly. Please.
So the answer is it depends on the engineering quality of your collider. And if you've got these 2 jokers building it, you've got no chance.
We'll have a bit of play in it. It'll be all right.
Exactly.
Engineering tolerance.
Tolerance. You don't have tolerance in physics, boys.
Calibration team can sort that crap out.
You'll be glad of that tolerance at some point, mate.
Do you know what? I do pity the fool who had to calibrate the Large Hadron Collider.
Oh, God.
Jesus, that's a job and a half, isn't it?
Because what's the total length?
It's long.
It's big.
It's like 10 miles or something ridiculous like that.
Oh, yeah, it's
Can you imagine trying to get you're matching the 2 ends up.
Imagine you got to the end of it, there's about 5 mil of play, and you're like, back up.
I can't cut a cake level, let alone
200 million quid down the pan.
Exactly. From an engineering point of view, it's terrifying.
Well, they did that for the Channel Tunnel, didn't they? Because they went at it from both ends and they mixed up. They got it slightly wrong. They had to put a kink in the middle because they missed. True story.
And that's why you need a bit of play. You know, if you didn't have that play, you'd be fucked.
Bit of play. Yeah, the problem is when you're underwater, mate, play is not a good thing. That allows leakage.
You just oversize the hole and put your concrete rings in a bit smaller. It's fine.
Exactly.
Christ.
Exactly, yeah. Anyway, Back of the Shelf podcast asks, we do a segment on our podcast where we discuss something we'd like removed from the hobby, be it a game or behaviour or aspect of the hobby itself. What's something you'd all like removed, either collectively or individually?
Wankers. That's what I'd like removed.
I was going to say that, but I had a politer way of saying it. Gatekeepers.
Gatekeepers.
Gatekeepers. And that's what took me away from it for years. Arseholes that told me how to play.
Oh, those.
Yeah, it's goff. Quite lightly put. Who are you to tell me how I should play and enjoy my other hobby? And actually, Games Workshop were, I don't know if they still are, prime candidate for this kind of behaviour. Now, we've talked a lot about Games Workshop today. There's a lot of people that acted like you weren't good enough to play. And that's not fair.
You see, I don't think that's Games Workshop itself. I think it's probably a lot of the people
whatever
who
the
play
reason, the people, whomever it is. I know from when I was younger that they were a major part of me leaving the hobby. Just they didn't let you in.
I can understand that. Yeah,
that's my one.
You can't have pink Space Marines.
Why not?
That's the wrong colour scheme for that version of the game. I don't give a f*** if it's the wrong colour. Doesn't change how I play it.
It's got the wrong colour shoulder pads for a tactical marine.
It just takes away from the game. It maybe has got better. It probably has improved and people have changed, but that's
It's a case by case basis. I think that Games Workshop don't want this to happen, but I think you're right. I think Games Workshop have not been strong enough in squashing this in the past.
Yes, let people in. I have to admit, I saw the opposite in Preston when I used to play. Whenever I used to go over there, because I used to sort of get on the bus because I was too young to drive at the time. And then we had a bus stop literally just outside my house, so it was dead easy. And it was like £3 return on the bus to Preston. Oh, that was like 10 miles. That was a bargain. £3 return. Anyway, got there, walked up to Games Workshop and spent like 4 hours in there. And they were really welcoming. So I come in and play. And I remember playing my first game of Warhammer 40k. And this was back at the time when it was Rogue Trader. So this was like first edition. Oh, yeah.
Blimey.
And they said, come and play the game. I said, okay. I was really nervous because I'd never played it before. I was sort of mooching about. And I didn't have a bloody clue what was going on. They were basically, just move that miniature there, and where do you want to put the dreadnought? And I said, let's go over there. It turns out I won. Turns out I'm clearly some kind of battle master. But they were, to be fair, they were really welcoming. So I think Steve's right. It definitely depends, and it's a case-by-case basis. But I know what you mean. There are that demographic.
Well, I mean, the example I've got is actually not Games Workshop. It's the Privateer Press game. I played War Machine. I went to I can't remember where the store was now, but I went with my friends somewhere in the West Midlands to play in this little mini tournament. And it was the perfect demographic because half the people there were really welcoming. They looked at your army and gone, whoa, you've got a weak point there. You're not covering this. Your base is here. You're not covering there.
The underpants are the wrong colour.
Well, no, they're genuinely helpful. Oh, yeah, you want some range to help you with this. You either want to focus on close combat and nothing else, or you want to make it more balanced, that kind of thing. This would help, that would help. And then the other end of the thing was like, oh, why have you painted it that colour?
It just adds. But what do they think they're adding? That's what blows my mind. Is how is that a healthy attitude to have at the table?
It is. I think gatekeeping is the right word. I think it's, and you see it more over the last few years with this explosion of geeky hobbies and geekdom in general, and D&D's. And I think D&D is having this exact same issue at the moment. Is for many people, it's their kind of identity. They're geeks. They don't do anything else. So they own this. It's theirs, And so when people do things that they'd say this thing to make them feel superior because they want to feel as if they know the most about it. And they also want to protect it because they've got this view of this is what I think it is and I think it should be. And I don't want you coming in and, with...
Coming in here with your pink Space Marines.
Yeah, pink Space Marines.
I am going to commission you, Lewis, for a pink Space Marine because I want one on my shelf now.
Okay, I could do that.
I will insist on a pastel colour palette. No primary colours.
Okay, I could do that.
Ooh.
No primary colours, that's plenty, because most of the colours in the Army Painter set are either brown, beige, blue, or purple.
I shall find you some Ajax paints, mate. Nice colours.
A very quick tangent. When you actually get into miniature painting, you never realise just how many browns you need.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Oh, that's a warm brown. That's a cool brown.
It is true. Oh, that beige is wrong. I need a dark beige. No, that's too dark. A little slightly lighter beige. And then you can't mix it with black because then it turns it like blue or something because the way the pigments interact, you end up with this random colour. You're thinking, what the hell is that? I didn't want grey. Yeah, I've seen that. It's annoying.
Do you know what? I blame... what's his chops? The one who's like really good miniature painter online. Who's very calm and clear. The Sarastro, that's the one. Because he's like, and to bring out the shade in this, you want to use purple or brown with some purple added. And you're like, hey? Why? What? It looks really good.
Yeah, it does.
That is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I learned actually. I was watching another video a week or two ago now about colour spectrums and the way colours interact and stuff. Because I've got to that point now where my shading is not as good as it should be, let's put it that way. And the way the guy described it is, obviously he discussed the differences between light, the way light interacts and the way pigments interact, because light paint's are subtractive and light is additive. And he basically came down to the idea that the pigments actually have like a base colour. So if you leave a paint on a wet palette or just let it on a blob and let it kind of separate from the water that you've mixed it with, you'll get this kind of skin or this film that sits on it. And I've had it in my wet palette, and I know what he means by this now. It's like it separates out, and you end up with this colour that sits on top, and that's what he means by the base colour of it. So, like, if you a lot of the blues, I found this with a lot of the blues, they end up having what he'd refer to as a grey base colour, i.e., if you mix them with grey, that will change their colour in the way you want them to. Whereas if you mixed it with, say, I don't know, yellow, it'd come out as orange or something like that, because it's just the way the pigments interact. And it was really quite eye-opening. It's like, that makes sense. That's why I'm getting all this horrible, nasty mank that I'm not expecting. There you go. You've learned something.
To go back to the question a moment.
Oh.
Something I'd like removed from the hobby. People who have no idea how business works complaining about Kickstarters or companies.
Oh, God, yes.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I second that one. My God. This is too expensive. Why have you made this decision?
Why haven't you done this? Because that's not how manufacturing works.
Yes, we need to make a decision that we can reproduce on a massive, massive scale. This is not three sheet metal workers in the Midlands hammering out a prototype.
And we all saw how that happened. Ended up even.
Yeah.
Indeed. I would like to see bad rulebooks removed.
That's fair enough.
Because it is the most frustrating thing to think, yes, I'm really excited about this board game. It looks great. It sounds like it plays great. And then you open the rulebook and go, what the hell?
You give the dogwoods
Yes, exactly.
head slant.
And then you've got to play it 4 times to even try and understand what the rules are. And you get, that doesn't make sense. That can't be right. That seems too overpowered. You go back to the rule book and find some small sub-paragraph on, like, in the appendix somewhere. It goes, by the way, if this happens, do this. Right, okay. Yeah. Badly structured, badly worded, unclear rule books can off.
Just because you say it quietly, you'll still get a hooter.
I know.
I've tried that. I've tried saying it quietly. I've tried saying it in different ways. I'm going to try a different language next and see if we get away with that. I'm going to beat that filter.
You do know this isn't live, so we can just either Google what you said and then hoot a bit.
Oh, I can guess by his tone.
Well,
whether he's swearing or not.
Every third word that comes out of his mouth is usually filth.
Hey, look,
so,
I've just come back from Scotland, right? My whole vocabulary. I'm struggling not to use a C. Was it country singers as a comma right now? It's taken every fibre of my body not to use it.
One Shot asks, do you wish more companies made several games in the same universe, such as what Garp Hill has done with North Seas and West Kingdom trilogies? For example, several games set in the Scythe world that could eventually be played in a campaign.
Ooh, that is an interesting question. And I kind of think yes, but I get it would probably be quite overdone. Because I've got, if you remember Cavern Tavern a few years ago, that was sort of one of Final Frontier's first games, I think. It's definitely the first gun I backed on Kickstarter.
It was the first one, I think, wasn't it?
I think so. And then they did... struggling to remember the name of that'll come back to me, but it's basically a sequel to that, and they were all set in what they've dubbed the sort of the world of the Five Kingdoms. So not unlike, the West Kingdom, for example. And I was really sort of on board with this because it was a nice setting, it was a nice idea, but they don't seem to have done anything else for a couple of years, which is a bit annoying. So I don't know if they've officially dumped it and moved on, or whether they've just parked it for a bit or what. But I was quite keen on seeing a few more of these because they kind of linked all the games together quite nicely.
I think short answer, yes.
Yeah.
From what companies have managed to pull this off, it works really well, but not many companies, I don't think, can get that calibre of game constantly coming out, which ends up fitting this brief, really.
No, it's true. I think Garpil and Shem Phillips have really set the bar there.
To be fair, the world they've created is not particularly deep either, is it? It's 3 Viking games, it's 3 vaguely knight and paladin related games, and then
a nice looking theme
else.
with the same artist. Interestingly, the same artist actually as the West Kingdom games I just mentioned.
Yeah,
so, yeah, because the Nico was a good artist.
Scythe is a good example as well, actually.
It's an interesting universe. I think you're right when you mentioned the deep universe. I think you can only really get away with something that's got either something fairly straightforward with similar mechanics like Shem Phillips has done, or something with a lot of lore that you can latch onto. I mean, it's something that we've latched onto in a lot of the RPGs. The reason we like them so much is because the lore is there, that we really like the setting and the universe that's created. So I think if you can get into it like you could in Scythe, then that would probably work well, because there's a lot of stuff you can eat and a lot of meat to feed on. Whereas if something's got a veneer-thin facade, then it's probably not going to work so well, which probably puts a lot of heavy euros in the bin.
I mean, well, this I was about to use an example, because sometimes this doesn't work. Because AEG tried to do this about, oh God, it's got to be before we started the podcast, so it's got to be about 7 years ago easily. They started doing a series of Euro games, and they were all supposed to be based in the same city. Because, Euro games involve usually some kind of city, and the only game really that stuck out of all this is Love Letter. So they all had the same art style, and the art was copied between them. And Love Letter was supposed to be the mini game. It was just like almost like a throwaway game, and it was supposed to be this big range of these Euro games all set in this one place. And no one remembers any of the other games. It's only Love Letter which remains.
Oh, wow. I can't think of any others. So, yes, I think you're right. We would. So, Luke O'Rafferty asks, are you going to be hitting the biggest conventions as soon as you're allowed, or do you think you'll be holding off a little longer before you're comfortable in big crowds? So, I've never been comfortable in big crowds, and I don't think big crowds have been comfortable. I've been there. So, I don't know. I wouldn't mind, really, but then again, I'm not that risk-averse, whereas Mr. Tudor, definitely risk-averse.
Well, I'm in two minds here because I've had the first jab. So I've had the first vaccination. So in theory, there's a bit of, oh, I'm all right, Jack.
Yeah.
But that doesn't actually stop it from being spread, doesn't it? They still don't know whether being vaccinated means you're actually spreading it.
True.
I'm in two minds because God knows I really don't want another lockdown like we've had this last 20 years, but at the same time I don't want to say yes I'll be going when it could all go to pot in the next 6 months again anyway.
True. Yeah, there's still a lot of uncertainty, even as people are getting I was going to say indoctrinated, then vaccinated. I mean, I've had COVID, so I'd like to think I'm probably less susceptible, but there's no evidence that is or is not the case, so I don't know. I wouldn't want it again. It wasn't pleasant, but I've survived it. So I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I'd like to go to another big convention, of course, but not at the risk of myself or those around me.
I think it's too early. I think it's too early to answer that question until we get over this April-May period. I think I might have a different
Let's
view.
see what happens once the schools are back and the pubs are open, and then see if we get another spike. That's the thing that's going to be the defining factor.
That's
when we
gonna
get,
be the key.
significant social mixing before you can stick 80,000 people in a room and see what happens.
Because I'm the same as Steve. For me, if I've got to have 6 more months of no big events, I'd rather have that than another lockdown. I can kind of cope with that. We did a lot of things online. This year we might do a few more things online, and a lot of the virtual stuff that happened towards the end of last year was all really good. And maybe maybe we just need to accept it for another 6 months, 9 months. I don't know. And we're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to go off these shores, are we? Put it that way. Even if we're fully vaccinated, we're not travelling very far.
No,
True.
It's not like we'll be booking a plane and going to Gen Con,
exactly.
is it?
Because we did that all
Or
the time,
Essen.
even if we were allowed to.
You won't be going to Essen or anywhere like that, will we? So
No,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, very much. The furthest I'm going to go is probably Scotland. Maybe this year. Maybe.
it depends if Jimmy Cranky has her way or not.
That's true. Derek Neal asks, do you prefer your RPGs to be epic, grand-scale narratives, or do you like low-key and more personal journeys? And why?
That's heavy, isn't it?
Both.
Both,
At the same
all
time.
together, all at once, mashed up in a glass.
Yeah.
You say that in a kind of facetious way, but I think that is actually the correct
No,
answer.
that is why are we saying it?
Actually.
It sounded facetious anyway, but
It's no, but the tone was facetious.
yes, indeed.
Yes.
But the thing is, no, you want maybe not necessarily grand scale narratives, but certainly an epic or indeed meaty setting. Like, I mean, Coriolis is a great example, or Alien, or something like that, which we both loved. We've all loved. But for me, it's all about the character and the story and the mischief you get up to that drives, the player interest. If there's nothing for the player to get their teeth stuck into, what's the point in playing? Whether the big overarching plot or not is not irrelevant, but less important than maybe the sort of day by day, ooh, this is interesting, ooh, this is interesting. You still need the kind of the threads there to keep you interested in the long game and the slight hooks to that story, but you don't need the overarching story to be present every single time.
And I think that's it. I think it needs the little things within the bigger plot. So the bigger plot drives it forward and gives you that end goal and gives you something to tie onto. And I mean, I love the big plots. I love this whole idea of, the players are going to do this and it's going to lead to this massive end-running event.
And they just don't. And you're like, fine. Here's another dragon. Jesus Christ.
Hey, we said we weren't going to be down on 5e again. Not this podcast.
I'm not talking about 5e. Oh no, you got a griffin last time we played Forbidden Lands, and you did not get on well with that.
Interestingly, that was going to be one of my comments to say where we're missing a grand scale narrative.
Forbidden Lands.
And that's why I think all of it together is Coriolis. It presents itself in a way that it feels like there's a bigger narrative going on. Just with the lore, just with the depth of lore and the depth of the context of the setting, it just lends itself to that epicness.
I suppose that's probably fair, because at least in Coriolis, as a player, you can read all of that before you start playing. There's a lot of lore and a lot of background before you get into the game, whereas in Forbidden Lands, not so much. It is literally just, you are in a fantasy world, a bit's happened, here is your character, and off you go, because it's a character-driven story, which is a lot harder to... But weirdly, I suppose, track.
That character-driven thing is what we also love. So whilst we were being in a facetious tone earlier, that is why, because that's some of our best characters are those character-driven ones that develop along with the story, the ones that have really nice tie-ins for the GM to pass over with.
I mean, we don't want to spend too long on Forbidden Lands because we are going to talk about it again at some point in the future. But I think, we've talked about Forbidden Lands in our sort of after dark sessions on a Wednesday night about, various problems that we're potentially having. And I think there are issues on both sides, from the DM and from the player point of view. But obviously we can get into that when we go into more detail.
God, we're teasing people.
And I don't mean either of them is bad from point of view.
It better be a good conversation when we talk about Forbidden Lands now. You've bigged it up. It's got all this teasers out there. Well, we're going to talk about that later.
Of course it's going to be good. We're involved.
Well, let's just hope it's not one of our after dark sessions. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we should record. No, we shouldn't record those.
No, we should not.
No. We'd be jailed.
As Johnston asks, how many delayed Kickstarters will be blamed on the week-long blockage?
I'm assuming he's talking about a ship and not what we had for dinner 2 days ago.
Don't know, development team might have eaten too many beans, I don't know.
Not enough roughage in their diet. I reckon everyone will take the opportunity to go, it's late. It's not because of our crap planning, it's because somebody parked a boat in a canal.
Judging by the amount of Kickstarters which are surprised by the Chinese New Year, which happens every year, I'm going to say the vast majority of them will be blaming it on this.
Yep, I agree. Even ones that aren't even shipping yet.
Oh yeah, the containers were all taken up. Yeah, all the containers were out at sea, so we couldn't even get them on a boat.
Do you know, fun fact, there was something like 300 ships in the queue. By the end of it all, I know. That's a lot of containers.
That's terrifying.
Take another week to clear the traffic jam, isn't it, or something stupid?
Well, the thing is, though, it's only a week delay. Admittedly, all the ports are going to have a bit of a backlog when they all start turning up at once, I guess.
Yeah, but you're compressing everything there.
Yes, I know. So it's going to be... the shipping isn't going to be delayed. It's going to be the sorting at the other end that's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
We've got 6 million containers to get through in a fortnight. Okay, thanks.
Just double stack them at Folkestone. It'll be fine.
job done.
Be all right.
There's a bit of play in the time scale.
Contingency, my friend, in that case. Thank you very much. It's contingency. That's not play. Don't misuse the word. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. As the former PM, I should know that, shouldn't I?
If you're going to be colloquial, I would even accept slack. I will not accept play.
Do you know what? Slack is probably more appropriate when it comes to you.
Cheeky.
Craig Turner asks, how soon after May 17th have you arranged the first game session? About 4 seconds.
I haven't.
No, I haven't even considered it. I don't even know when the dates are. I've actually learned now that May 17th is the day we're allowed to see each other. Thank you, Craig Turner.
I haven't, for the very reason that everything I've planned over the last 6 months has been cancelled due to a turnaround in lockdown dates. So I'm not planning anything.
No, I think that's sensible. I think we should remain sceptical until things open and, you know, everyone brings back crud. Like, it's when the school opens in September, everyone's ill for a week because the kids mix, bring back sweat and cold and disease home. Everyone's ill, and then you get over it. I think the same is going to happen again. We're going to get another spike, and we're going to go back to square one because this has been a mismanaged shit show.
There is that.
I refuse to build hope.
Exactly.
Yeah, manage my expectations is the phrase I like to use.
Yes. Let's be professional.
Are
we going to leverage our synergy as
That's
well?
not like us.
You can't be disappointed if you never had hope in the first place.
It's true. Derek Neal, again, asks, what are the requirements you ask of a Kickstarter project before you back it? Well, that it's there.
Yeah, that sounds about right for you, doesn't it, Andy?
I am actually slightly more discerning than that. Not much, but I am.
You wait for Kickstarter's algorithm to suggest it to you rather than you having to have
I
to
do
out
not,
yourself.
actually. I hardly ever go for the suggested ones because they're usually pish and party games and things that have been promoted so hard that anything that promotes something that hard, it's like movies. If everyone's relying on advertising, it kind of, if you're pushing it that hard, you've got to question why can't it sell itself? Probably because it is shit if it needs that much promotion.
I think that's all we've got time for today. So thank you very much for listening. We have been Polyhedron Collider. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. If you'd like to chat to us, we are on Twitter at PolyhedronC, and I'm at Wahothamadenga.
I'm at Sonic H with 0. Mr. John Cage is at imaginatively John_Cage, and Rory J. Summers is at Rory J. Summers. A lot of imagination, these boys. We also have a Facebook page, and we have a guild, number 2726, at The Board Game Geek. And we still have a website, although I'm surprised it still exists and not been closed for inactivity on our part, at polyhedroncollider.com.
Until next time, tatty bye and happy gaming.
Good evening.
Cheerio.
One Shot asks, do you wish more companies made several games in the same use?
Put your teeth into it. Jesus Christ.
We're doing well today.